Welcome to this video on the century of humiliation, a period that has had indelible impact on Chinese history. This was a time of immense upheaval and transformation that lasted from the mid-19th century until the mid-20th century and marked a profound turning point in China's relationship with the outside world. In this video, we will take you on a journey through the events that shaped this era, starting with its origins and exploring its many complexities and challenges. You will learn about the conflicts, invasions, and political upheavals that ravaged China during this time, and the social, economic, and cultural changes that came with them. But our story doesn't end there. We will also explore how China managed to emerge from this turbulent period and regain its footing as a global superpower. It's a tale of resilience, courage, and determination that will leave you inspired and awed by the human spirit. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and prepare to be transported back in time as I delve into the gripping story of the century of humiliation. But before we go further, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, then please do it and make sure you press the bell icon so you don't miss any of my new exciting videos like this one. You can also look into becoming a member of this channel or my patron by going to patreon.com/xmuslim and enjoy some of the amazing benefits this channel has to offer. The century of humiliation refers to the period between the mid-19th century and the mid-20th century, when China experienced a series of humiliations and defeats at the hands of foreign powers. The period began with the Opium Wars in 1839 to 1842 and 1856 to 1860, which were fought between China and the British Empire. The British, who were keen on increasing their trade with China, started smuggling opium into the country. When China attempted to ban the drug, the British declared war, and the Chinese were easily defeated due to their outdated military technology. The first Opium War started in 1839 when Chinese authorities tried to stop the illegal opium trade, which was causing widespread addiction and social problems in the country. The British, who controlled much of the opium trade, refused to comply and used their military might to force China to open its ports to foreign trade. In 1842, China was forced to sign the Treaty of Nanjing, which granted Britain extraterritorial rights, ceded Hong Kong to the British, and imposed indemnities on China. The Treaty of Nanjing was seen as a major humiliation for China, as it marked the first time in modern history that a Western power had imposed unequal treaties on China. The treaty was followed by a series of unequal treaties signed with other Western powers, which further eroded China's sovereignty and economic power. The Second Opium War started in 1856 when Chinese authorities confiscated British-owned opium in Guangzhou. In response, Britain and France launched a military campaign against China, which lasted until 1860. The Treaty of Tianjin, signed in 1858, imposed even harsher terms on China, including the opening of additional treaty ports, the legalization of the opium trade, and the payment of large indemnities to Britain and France. The conditions imposed on China by the two Opium Wars were seen as humiliating and unjust by the Chinese people, and they became a symbol of the country's subjugation to foreign powers. China's loss in the wars exposed the weakness of its military and economic power and its inability to resist foreign aggression. This led to a period of internal unrest and political turmoil in China, as various reform movements emerged in an attempt to modernize the country and regain its strength. After the Opium Wars, China faced a series of defeats at the hands of various foreign powers. The First Sino-Japanese War took place between 1894 and 1895 and was fought between the Empire of Japan and the Qing dynasty of China. It was a significant conflict that ultimately resulted in Japan's emergence as a major world power and marked the decline of China's influence in East Asia. The causes of the war can be traced back to the late 19th century when both Japan and China were seeking to expand their spheres of influence. Japan was experiencing rapid industrialization and modernization and was looking to assert itself as a regional power. China, on the other hand, was struggling with internal turmoil, including the Boxer Rebellion, and was unable to resist foreign influence and aggression. The conflict began in earnest in July 1894 when a dispute over the control of Korea, which was a vassal state of China, erupted into open warfare. The Japanese had been seeking to establish a stronger presence on the Korean peninsula, and the Chinese were determined to prevent this from happening. Initially, the Chinese army enjoyed some success, but their outdated weapons and tactics proved to be no match for the modernized Japanese military. The Japanese quickly gained the upper hand and launched a series of decisive victories, including the Battle of the Yalu River, which saw the destruction of the Chinese navy. The war was fought on both land and sea, and the Japanese demonstrated their superior technology and tactics. They were able to seize control of key ports and cities in China, including the capital, Beijing, and force the Chinese to sue for peace. The First Sino-Japanese War had far-reaching consequences for both China and Japan. For Japan, it marked its emergence as a major world power and set the stage for its later expansionist policies in the region. For China, it was a humiliating defeat that exposed the weakness and backwardness of its military and government and led to a period of introspection and reform. The defeat also fueled nationalist sentiment in China and contributed to the rise of anti-foreign and anti-Qing sentiment. Many Chinese intellectuals and reformers began to question the traditional Confucian values and institutions that had been in place for centuries and looked to Western ideas and technology as a means of modernizing and strengthening China. The First Sino-Japanese War, therefore, was a key event in the history of East Asia and played a significant role in shaping the region's political, economic, and social landscape in the years to come. The Treaty of Shimonoseki, signed in April 1895, marked the end of the conflict. China was forced to cede Taiwan, the Pescadores Islands, and the Liaodong Peninsula to Japan, as well as paying a large indemnity. The treaty also opened up several ports in China to Japanese trade and influence. This war was followed by the Boxer Rebellion in 1900, which saw a group of Chinese nationalists rise up against foreign powers in China. The rebellion was eventually put down by a coalition of foreign powers, and China was forced to pay a huge indemnity again. In 1911, the Qing dynasty was overthrown and China became a republic. However, the country remained weak and divided, and in 1931, Japan invaded Manchuria, setting up a puppet state there. The invasion sparked the Second Sino-Japanese War, which lasted from 1937 to 1945 and saw China suffer significant losses. The Second Sino-Japanese War started on July 7, 1937, when a dispute over the Marco Polo Bridge in Beijing escalated into a full-scale invasion of China by the Japanese Imperial Army. The war quickly escalated into a large-scale conflict that left millions of Chinese civilians dead and wounded. The war also played a pivotal role in the rise of the Communist Party of China and the eventual victory of the Chinese Communist Revolution in 1949. Japan's primary goal was to expand its empire by annexing parts of China, including Manchuria, which had been under Japanese control since 1931. Japan also sought to secure China's natural resources, including oil, coal, and iron. In the early years of the war, the Chinese nationalist government, led by Chiang Kai-shek, attempted to fight off the Japanese invasion. However, the Chinese military was ill-equipped and poorly trained, and they were quickly overwhelmed by the Japanese army's superior technology and tactics. The nationalist government's attempts to resist the Japanese invasion were also hampered by internal corruption and political infighting. As the war dragged on, the CCP, led by Mao Zedong, saw an opportunity to gain popular support by portraying itself as the only viable alternative to the corrupt and ineffective nationalist government. The CCP launched guerrilla campaigns against the Japanese, and their popularity soared among the Chinese people. The CCP's military success against the Japanese was aided by their ideology of socialism and nationalism, which resonated with the Chinese people who had grown disillusioned with the nationalist government. Mao's famous statement that political power grows out of the barrel of a gun became the guiding principle of the CCP's military strategy. The United States, which had been providing aid to the nationalist government, also began to see the CCP as a viable alternative to the nationalists. The US sent military advisors to train the CCP's army, and the CCP gained increasing internal recognition as a legitimate political force. By the end of the war, the CCP had emerged as the most powerful political force in China. In 1949, the CCP established the People's Republic of China, and Mao Zedong became the country's first communist leader. The Second Sino-Japanese War was a turning point in Chinese history. The war devastated the country and led to the deaths of millions of Chinese civilians. However, it also provided an opportunity for the CCP to gain popular support and ultimately to seize power. The war also highlighted the weaknesses of the nationalist government and paved the way for CCP's victory in the Chinese Civil War. The century of humiliation came to an end with the victory of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, in the Chinese Civil War. The CCP, led by Mao Zedong, defeated the Nationalist Party, led by Chiang Kai-shek, in 1949 and established the People's Republic of China. The CCP vowed to restore China's national pride and to never again allow China to be humiliated by foreign powers. Under Mao's leadership, China underwent significant social and economic changes. Mao implemented a series of reforms, including the land reforms, which redistributed land from wealthy landlords to poor peasants, and the Great Leap Forward, which aimed to rapidly industrialize China. However, the Great Leap Forward resulted in a famine that claimed the lives of millions of Chinese. So why is it called the Century of Humiliation? The Century of Humiliation is called as such because it was a period when China suffered a series of defeats and humiliations at the hands of foreign powers. During this period, China was forced to sign unequal treaties with foreign powers, which resulted in the loss of territory and resources. China was also subjected to a series of indignities, such as the burning of the Summer Palace by British troops in 1860. The Century of Humiliation had a profound impact on the Chinese psyche. It led to a sense of natural humiliation and inferiority, which still resonates with many Chinese today. It also fueled a desire for national unity and strength, which was achieved with the establishment of the People's Republic of China. That brings us to the end of this video on the Century of Humiliation. I hope this video has given you a better understanding of this important period in Chinese history. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave a comment with your thoughts. If I missed something or you disagree with something, let me know below in the comments. That's it for now. Until next video, salute. To help me produce more videos like these, support me on Patreon or PayPal.